The emergency beacon screamed across 17 star systems, its desperate message bouncing from relay to relay until it reached the farthest corners of known space. Ambassador Al of the Galactic Council pressed her forearms against the transmission console, her violet skin pale with exhaustion. Around her, the grand chamber of the council station buzzed with panicked activity as representatives from hundreds of species scrambled to find a solution to their impossible problem. "The Devourers have taken 3 more systems," reported General, his features clicking with anxiety. 128 and Wolf 1061, every living thing consumed, every planet stripped bare. They're moving faster than our projections." Al's primary eyes focused on the holographic display showing the galactic map. Red zones spread like a plague across the outer rim, marking territories where the Devourers had already fed. Each red dot represented billions of lives lost, entire civilizations erased as if they had never existed. "How long until they reach the core worlds?" asked Chancellor M., her translucent form shimmering with fear-induced bioluminescence. "At their current rate of expansion, 18 standard cycles," replied grimly. "Maybe less if they continue to accelerate." The Devourers had appeared without warning 6 cycles ago. Massive, writhing entities that emerged from the void between galaxies, they consumed everything in their path. Not just organic matter, but metals, gases, even the energy from stars themselves. Entire solar systems vanished into their endless hunger, leaving nothing but cold, empty space. "What about the Empire's battle fleets?" Al asked desperately. "They have the most advanced military in the galaxy." "Destroyed," said quietly. 3 full armadas. The Devourers simply absorbed their weapons' fire and grew larger. The home fleet lasted exactly 14 minutes against a single entity. Murmurs of despair rippled through the chamber. There were legendary warriors, their ships capable of cracking moons. If they had fallen so easily, what hope did anyone else have? "The Ethereal Collective," someone called out. "Their psionic attacks had no effect. The Devourers don't appear to have minds as we understand them." "The Technosynthesis Alliance." "Their nano-weapon swarms were absorbed and converted into more Devourer mass." One by one, every military option was discussed and dismissed. The galaxy's greatest civilizations, species that had conquered death and mastered the fundamental forces of nature, were helpless against this cosmic horror. Al stared at the emergency beacon controls. They had sent distress calls to every known spacefaring civilization, even those beyond the galactic rim. Most had responded with offers of aid that proved useless. A few had simply gone silent, probably consumed before they could even reply. "There is one signal we haven't tried," said Junior Technician Oss, her voice barely audible over the chaos. The young was hunched over a secondary console, her 6 fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Speak up," Al commanded. Oss stood, her scaled skin flushing with nervous colors. "The Sol system. It's in the databases as a quarantine zone. There's a species there called humans. The files are marked with a warning classification." "What kind of warning?" Chancellor M. asked. Oss hesitated. "Extreme danger. Origin. Recommended contact protocol is complete avoidance." The chamber fell silent. Species were legendary in galactic lore, more myth than reality. Supposedly, there were planets so hostile to life that any species evolving there would become something beyond normal comprehension. Every civilized race had stories about, usually told to frighten younglings. "Why would a species be marked for avoidance?" General asked skeptically. "If they're so dangerous, wouldn't we want them as allies?" "The file says they're unpredictable and violent. Their planet is classified as a Class 12 death world. For reference, most species consider Class 3 uninhabitable." Al felt a chill run through her. Class 12 was beyond the scale most scientists thought possible. A planet where gravity, radiation, weather, geological activity, and biological threats all combined to create a hellscape that should theoretically prevent any complex life from evolving. "It also says they're currently in a pre-contact stage of development," Oss continued. No faster-than-light travel, no energy weapons, no shield technology. They're still using chemical rockets and projectile weapons. Then what use could they possibly be? Demanded. But Al was thinking. The Galactic Council had protocols about contacting primitive species. Usually, first contact was delayed until a civilization reached certain technological milestones. But in desperate times, exceptions could be made. "Show me their planet," she ordered. The holographic display shifted, zooming in on a small blue world orbiting a yellow star. As the image focused, data streams began flowing across the screens. Al read the information with growing amazement. 71% of the surface was covered in a corrosive liquid that could dissolve most known materials. The atmosphere contained a highly reactive gas that was toxic to most galactic species, but apparently essential to human life. Weather patterns included massive electrical storms, frozen precipitation, and cyclonic events with winds exceeding 300 standard velocity units. The planet's geological activity was constant and violent. Tectonic plates shifting continuously, volcanic eruptions spewing toxic gases, and seismic events that would level most galactic cities. The magnetic field fluctuated wildly, allowing deadly radiation from their star to bombard the surface. "This is impossible," breathed Chancellor M. "How could intelligence evolve in these conditions?" But the more Al read, the more fascinated she became. The humans hadn't just survived their nightmare world, they had thrived on it. The biological scans showed a species with redundant organ systems, incredible healing capacity, and the ability to function in environments that would kill most galactic citizens within minutes. "Look at their history files," Oz said, pulling up another data stream. "They've survived multiple extinction events. Asteroid impacts, eruptions, ice ages, plague outbreaks that killed significant portions of their population. Each time, they adapted and came back stronger. The records showed a species that seemed to relish conflict. They had weapons designed specifically to kill their own kind with terrifying efficiency. Their entire civilization was built around competition, struggle, and the idea that strength came from overcoming impossible odds. Their military history is..." Oz paused, searching for words. "They have over 14,000 recorded wars in just the last 5,000 cycles. They've weaponized everything from their weather to their diseases. Some of their conflicts killed hundreds of millions, and they kept fighting anyway." "Savages," muttered. "Perhaps," Al said slowly, "but look at what they've accomplished." Despite their violent nature, humans had built a remarkably advanced civilization. They had split the atom, mapped their genetic code, and were beginning to explore their solar system. More importantly, they showed an unusual tendency to work together when facing external threats. "They have stories," Oz said, scrolling through cultural databases. "Legends and myths about heroes who fight impossible odds. Their entertainment focuses on individuals or small groups defeating overwhelming enemies. They seem to find hope in hopeless situations." An idea was forming in Al's mind. A desperate, probably insane idea, but possibly their only chance. "Can we reach them?" she asked. "The Sol system is 47 light-years from here. Our fastest ships could make the journey in 3 cycles." "That's too long," General objected. "The Devourers will reach us in 18 cycles. Even if these humans could help, which is unlikely given their primitive technology, we don't have time to transport them across the galaxy." "We don't need to transport them," Al said quietly. "We need to transport ourselves." The chamber erupted in confused voices. Al raised her 4 arms for silence. "Think about it," she said. "Every advanced civilization in the galaxy has tried to fight the Devourers using advanced technology. Energy weapons, exotic matter, psionic powers, nanotechnology. Nothing worked. But what if advanced technology isn't the answer?" "You're suggesting we abandon our colonies and flee to a primitive?" Chancellor M asked incredulously. "I'm suggesting we find out what makes different. If their planet could forge a species tough enough to survive Class 12 conditions, maybe that same toughness could find a way to survive the Devourers." It's madness, protested. We'd be gambling the survival of galactic civilization on the untested abilities of primitives who don't even know we exist. We're already gambling, Al replied. Our current plan is to wait for the Devourers to reach us and hope we can find a miracle solution in the next 18 cycles. That's not a plan, that's accepting defeat. She turned to Oz. What do we know about human psychology? How do they typically respond to threats? The young technician pulled up more files. According to the anthropological data, they have an unusual response pattern. When faced with existential threats, they tend to unite despite their differences. They also show remarkable innovation under pressure. Some of their greatest technological advances came during periods of extreme crisis. And their reaction to requests for help. Mixed results. They can be suspicious of outsiders, but they have strong cultural concepts about protecting the innocent and fighting against overwhelming evil. If properly motivated, they might be willing to help. Al made her decision. Prepare a diplomatic vessel. Small crew, minimal technology to avoid appearing threatening. We're going to make first contact with humanity. Ambassador, General said formally, I must protest this course of action. Even if the humans prove helpful, we're revealing the existence of galactic civilization to a species that hasn't been properly evaluated for contact readiness. The evaluation protocols assume we have time to study them properly, Al replied. We don't have that luxury. Besides, if the Devourers aren't stopped, there won't be a galactic civilization left to protect. Over the next several hours, preparations began in earnest. A small diplomatic vessel was equipped with translation technology and cultural databases. The crew was selected for their ability to work with unknown species and their psychological stability under stress. As Al reviewed the mission parameters, she found herself studying the human cultural files with growing fascination. These creatures had evolved on a world that actively tried to kill them every day, and their response had been to build art, music, literature, and philosophy celebrating the struggle against impossible odds. Their religions spoke of beings who sacrificed themselves for others. Their heroes were individuals who stood against overwhelming darkness to protect the innocent. Their greatest stories were about ordinary people finding extraordinary courage when everything seemed lost. Perhaps, she thought, that's exactly what we need. The diplomatic vessel Peaceful Dawn launched exactly 36 hours after the decision was made. As it jumped to hyperspace, beginning its journey toward the Sol system, Al sent one final message to the Galactic Council. We go seeking help from the only species in our database that evolved by fighting impossible odds every day. If anyone can find a way to survive the Devourers, it might be the ones who learn to thrive in hell. The journey to Earth took 2.5 cycles, during which the crew studied everything they could about human civilization. What they found was both encouraging and terrifying. Humans were capable of breathtaking cruelty and remarkable compassion, sometimes within the same individual. They could create weapons designed to end all life on their planet, then organize global efforts to preserve endangered species. They were simultaneously the most violent and most protective species in the galactic databases. When the Peaceful Dawn finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, Al stared at the blue world ahead and wondered if she had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history, or its last desperate hope for salvation. The ship's sensors picked up hundreds of primitive satellites and space stations orbiting Earth. Radio transmissions filled the electromagnetic spectrum with voices, music, and data streams in dozens of different languages. Despite their technological limitations, humans had managed to connect their entire world in a global communications network. Beginning passive scans, reported ship scientist Al. Population approximately 7.8 billion individuals, multiple nation-states, but extensive trade and communication networks. They appear to be in a transitional period, moving from a purely planetary civilization towards spacefaring capability. Any indication they've detected us? Al asked. Negative. Their sensor technology is too primitive to penetrate our stealth systems. Al studied the tactical displays showing human military installations. Even by primitive standards, they were impressively armed. Nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons, kinetic weapons capable of hitting targets on the other side of their planet. For a species that couldn't even leave their solar system reliably, they had certainly mastered the art of destruction. But they had also built cities of stunning beauty, created art that spoke to universal emotions, and developed scientific theories that approached galactic standard accuracy despite their limited tools. "Take us to their largest population center," Al ordered. "It's time to make contact." As the ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, Al felt a strange mixture of hope and terror. In a few hours, she would either gain humanity as an ally in their desperate fight for survival, or accidentally trigger an incident that could doom both species. The fate of the galaxy might depend on how well she could explain to a group of primitive that the universe was ending, and they were the only ones who might be able to stop it. The United Nations emergency session was called at 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time, when every major government's early warning systems detected the impossible object hovering 2 miles above Manhattan. Secretary General Maria Santos stared at the main screen in the Security Council chamber, watching feeds from dozens of cameras all showing the same thing. A crystalline ship roughly the size of a city block, completely motionless in Earth's atmosphere, defying every law of physics humanity understood. "Military response?" asked General Harrison, his weathered face grim in the emergency lighting. "All our fighters are in the air, but keeping their distance," replied Admiral from the Pentagon. "Whatever that thing is, it's not showing up on radar, infrared, or any electromagnetic spectrum. We can only see it visually." "Have they made any attempt to communicate?" Santos asked. "That's the strange part," said Dr. Sarah from SETI. "We're detecting a transmission on multiple frequencies, but it's not radio waves or any form of electromagnetic radiation we recognize. It's like they're trying to talk to us, but using technology we can't comprehend." Santos rubbed her tired eyes. As Secretary General, she had dealt with international crises, natural disasters, and political emergencies. But nothing had prepared her for humanity's first contact with an alien species. "Ma'am," interrupted communications officer, "we're getting reports from Beijing, Moscow, London, and Tokyo. Similar objects have appeared over each location, all maintaining the same altitude and transmitting the same unknown signals." The implications hit Santos like a physical blow. This wasn't a single ship making accidental contact. This was a coordinated operation by an intelligence capable of precise, simultaneous deployment across the planet. "Estimated technological advantage?" she asked quietly. General Harrison's expression was grave. "Ma'am, they appeared in our atmosphere without any of our detection systems registering their approach. Their ships violate several fundamental laws of physics just by existing. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it before we knew they were here." "So why haven't they?" Before anyone could answer, every screen in the chamber suddenly displayed the same image: a humanoid figure with 4 arms, violet skin, and large dark eyes. The creature appeared to be sitting in some kind of control room, surrounded by incomprehensible technology. "People of Earth," the figure said in perfect English, though its mouth movements didn't quite match the words. "My name is Ambassador Al of the Galactic Council. I apologize for the abrupt nature of our arrival, but time is of critical importance. We need your help." Santos exchanged glances with the other officials. An alien civilization was asking humanity for help. That seemed backwards. The image continued. "I know this must be shocking. Your species has not yet achieved faster-than-light travel, so you may not be aware that the galaxy contains millions of inhabited worlds and thousands of space-faring civilizations. For over 50,000 of your years, we have watched your development with interest and concern." "Concern," Santos whispered. "Your world has been classified as a Class 12 death world, the most extreme rating in our databases. According to our scientific models, Complex life should not be able to evolve under such conditions, yet not only have you survived, but you have thrived in ways that astound our. Doctor leaned forward. They're calling Earth a death world. The alien continued. We are here because our galaxy faces extinction. An enemy we call the Devourers has appeared from the void between galaxies. They consume everything in their path, planets, stars, entire civilizations. Every advanced military force we possess has been destroyed. Our greatest weapons are useless. In desperation, we have come seeking aid from the only species we know that evolved by fighting impossible odds every single day. The chamber was completely silent now. Santos felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. I will be honest with you, Al said. We are asking you to face an enemy that has destroyed civilizations millions of years more advanced than your own. The logical response would be to refuse. But we have studied your species, and logic is not always how humans respond to threats against innocent life. Images began appearing on the screen. Star charts showing the progress of red zones across the galaxy, recordings of planets being stripped bare by massive writhing entities, fleets of ships disappearing into darkness that seemed to devour light itself. These creatures have already consumed over 3,000 inhabited systems. Billions of thinking beings, countless civilizations, entire species that existed for millions of years, all gone. They are moving toward the galactic core, where most of our civilizations are located. At their current rate of expansion, they will reach Earth in approximately 80 of your years. General Harrison leaned back in his chair. 80 years, that's beyond most of our lifetimes but our children. The choice is yours, the alien ambassador said. We can provide you with faster-than-light transportation and basic translation technology. What we cannot provide is weapons, because weapons don't seem to work against them. What we need is something our advanced civilizations have apparently lost, the ability to survive when survival should be impossible. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Ma'am, said quietly, we're receiving communication requests from every major nation. They're all asking the same questions. Santos stood slowly, her mind racing through implications. Humanity had just learned they weren't alone in the universe, that Earth was considered a nightmare world by galactic standards, and that alien civilizations were asking for help against something that had destroyed everything they considered advanced. Get me the President, Premier Zai, President, Prime Minister Singh, and the other G20 leaders on secure conference. And contact every major religious leader, scientist, and philosopher we can reach. If we're going to respond to this, humanity needs to speak with one voice. Over the next 6 hours, the most important conversations in human history took place. Religious leaders debated whether this was a test of faith or a calling to serve a higher purpose. Scientists argued over the physics-defying technology they had witnessed. Military leaders tried to comprehend how Earth's weapons might affect entities that had shrugged off galaxy-spanning civilizations. But gradually, a consensus emerged. It was the same consensus that had appeared throughout human history when faced with extinction-level threats. When the innocent are in danger, humans fight, regardless of the odds. The response came 18 hours after first contact, broadcast on every frequency the aliens had used to communicate. Ambassador Al, this is Secretary General Santos speaking for the United Nations and the people of Earth. We have considered your request. Before we give our answer, we need you to understand something about our species. Santos paused, gathering her thoughts. The words she spoke next would be preserved in history forever, assuming there was still a history to preserve. You call our world a death world. You're right. Every day our planet tries to kill us through weather, geological activity, radiation, biological threats, and countless other hazards. But those same hazards taught us something your advanced civilizations may have forgotten. When survival is impossible, you change the definition of impossible. She gestured to aides who began transmitting files to the alien ships. Records of human history, military tactics, survival techniques developed in Earth's most hostile environments. We have survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, eruptions, and global pandemics. We have created weapons that could end all life on our planet, then chosen not to use them. We have built civilizations in deserts, on mountain peaks, in Arctic wastelands, and on the ocean floor. We do not retreat from impossible situations, we adapt to them. More files transmitted. Records of human innovation under pressure, military strategies, scientific breakthroughs achieved during wartime, accounts of individuals surviving in conditions that should have killed them. You say your weapons don't work against these devourers. Perhaps that's because you're thinking of this as a traditional war. Humans learned long ago that when conventional warfare fails, you change the nature of the conflict. You use guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare, environmental advantages, and creative solutions that your enemy cannot predict. Santos looked directly into the camera, knowing her words were being transmitted to beings who could cross the galaxy, but had been defeated by creatures from outside it. Most importantly, you say these devourers consume everything, but they've never encountered anything like Earth. Our world has spent 4 billion years creating life forms that refuse to die. Our bacteria can survive in boiling acid, our plants can grow in radioactive waste, and our animals can adapt to environmental changes in a single generation. She paused for effect. If these devourers want to consume Earth, they're going to discover that our entire biosphere is essentially one massive biological weapon that has been perfecting survival techniques since before your civilizations existed. The transmission continued with specific offers of assistance. Human military advisors would study devourer tactics and develop countermeasures. Human scientists would analyze the entities to find exploitable weaknesses. Human engineers would design new weapons based on Earth's most dangerous natural phenomena. We cannot promise victory, Santos concluded. What we can promise is that humanity will stand with you against this threat. We will fight until there is no fight left in us. And if we fall, we will make sure our deaths teach you something useful about destroying these creatures. The response from the galactic representatives came within hours. Ambassador Al appeared on screens worldwide, and for the first time since her arrival, she appeared to have hope in her large alien eyes. People of Earth, she said, the Galactic Council has reviewed your offer and accepts it with profound gratitude. However, we must inform you that our situation has worsened. The Devourers have accelerated their advance. We now estimate 12 cycles, approximately 15 of your years, before they reach the core worlds where most of our populations reside. The timeline was much shorter than expected, but Santos saw something in the alien's expression that made her smile. That's still longer than most human wars last, Santos replied. And it's 15 years to study your enemy, prepare our defenses, and teach your people something about fighting when fighting should be impossible. There is one more thing, Al continued. Our scientists believe the Devourers may be attracted to large concentrations of technological civilization. Earth's relatively primitive technology might make it less visible to them. We would like to request permission to relocate some of our most essential populations to your world. Santos considered this carefully. Humanity was being asked to shelter refugees from civilizations more advanced than anything in human imagination. On a world the refugees considered a nightmare hellscape. Ambassador, how many refugees are we talking about? Initially, perhaps 50 million individuals from various species. They would bring their own life support technology and would not require resources from Earth. However, they would need to adapt to living in your planet's extreme conditions. Santos found herself grinning despite the gravity of the situation. Ambassador, every year humans voluntarily visit Antarctica, climb mountains that can kill them, dive to ocean depths that would crush most creatures, and vacation in deserts hot enough to boil water. I think we can teach your people how to survive on a death world. There is significant risk, Al warned. If the Devourers detect our refugees, they may target Earth directly. Then they'll discover what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, Santos replied. Because I guarantee you, these creatures have never encountered anything as stubborn as a human being who's been told they can't win. Over the following months, the greatest cooperative effort in human history began. Alien refugees started arriving on Earth, initially horrified by the planet's conditions, but gradually learning to appreciate its harsh beauty. Human advisors traveled to alien worlds, studying devourer attack patterns and developing new tactical approaches. The results were remarkable. Human analysis of devourer behavior revealed patterns that advanced civilizations had missed. The entities weren't just mindlessly consuming, they were selectively targeting specific types of technological signatures. Human scientists developed ways to mask civilizations' technological footprints, making entire worlds invisible to devourer detection. Human military tactics, designed for asymmetrical warfare and survival in hostile environments, proved surprisingly effective when adapted to space combat. Instead of meeting the devourers head-on with massive fleets, human advisors taught alien militaries to use hit-and-run attacks, environmental hazards, and misdirection. Most importantly, humans began training alien populations in something their advanced civilizations had forgotten: how to endure suffering without breaking, how to find hope in hopeless situations, and how to keep fighting when every rational calculation said defeat was certain. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Doctor, studying the devourer specimens, made a discovery that changed everything. "They're not just consuming matter and energy," she reported to the Joint Human-Alien Research Council. "They're consuming information, specifically the information patterns that define organized matter as distinct from random cosmic background." The implications were staggering. The devourers weren't just destroyers, they were entropy engines, returning organized systems to primordial chaos. That explained why advanced technology was useless against them. The more organized and complex a civilization became, the more attractive a target it presented. "But Earth's biosphere is different," Doctor continued. "Life here evolved under constant entropic pressure. Our biological systems are inherently chaotic, adaptive, and resistant to information decay. We're not organized in the way that attracts devourers. We're organized in a way that thrives on chaos." The research team realized they had found their weapon: not advanced technology, but the most primitive force in the universe: life's fundamental refusal to accept extinction. As the devourers approached the galactic core, they encountered something unprecedented. Instead of fleeing or mounting doomed last stands, entire civilizations began deliberately introducing controlled chaos into their systems. Alien cities redesigned themselves to mimic Earth's organic growth patterns. Technological systems were rebuilt using biological principles that could adapt and evolve under pressure. The galaxy was learning to fight like Earth had taught them, not by becoming stronger than the enemy, but by becoming more resilient than anything the enemy had ever encountered. When the devourers finally reached the core worlds, they found not the organized civilizations they had consumed throughout their journey, but something that resembled the chaotic, stubborn, impossibly adaptive life they had never encountered before. Life that had learned its survival techniques from the ultimate death world and refused to stay dead no matter what tried to kill it. The first devourer entity arrived at the 438 system exactly 14 years, 7 months, and 16 days after humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council. Admiral Sarah, now commanding the Joint Human Galactic Defense Fleet, watched the massive creature emerge from hyperspace through the bridge viewports of the indomitable Spirit, humanity's first interstellar warship. The entity was even more terrifying in person than the recordings had suggested. Roughly the size of Earth's moon, it writhed through space like a living shadow, its surface constantly shifting between states of matter. Where starlight touched it, the light simply vanished, consumed and converted into more of the creature's incomprehensible substance. "All ships, report status," commanded, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what they faced. "Human Task Force Alpha ready," came the reply from Captain Martinez aboard the Persistence. "Brazilian jungle warfare specialists standing by for environmental assault protocols." "Defense wing prepared," reported Admiral Al from the alien dreadnought Harmony's Edge. "Bioadaptive systems online, chaos pattern generators active." "Battle group acknowledging readiness," growled General, whose people had rebuilt their military using human guerrilla tactics. Stealth swarm deployed. Smiled grimly. The fleet arrayed around looked nothing like the massive formations that had been destroyed in earlier encounters. Instead of a traditional battle line, hundreds of small, fast ships darted through space in seemingly random patterns. Some were human vessels, built tough and simple using Earth's most reliable technologies. Others were alien ships retrofitted with biological components that could adapt and evolve during combat. All of them had been designed according to a single principle learned from Earth's biosphere. When you can't be stronger than your enemy, be more persistent, more adaptable, and more willing to endure pain than they are. Target is beginning consumption protocols, reported sensor technician Williams. It's extending feeding tendrils toward the fourth planet. Watched as massive appendages reached out from the Devourer toward 438D, a world that had been evacuated months ago, but left with a surprise the creature wouldn't expect. "Doctor, are your experiments ready?" From the science station, grinned with anticipation. Over the past 14 years, she had become the galaxy's foremost expert on Devourer biology, and her discoveries had revolutionized their understanding of how to fight these entities. "Biological warfare package deployed on target planet as planned," she reported. "The moment it tries to consume 438D, it's going to get the most aggressive dose of Earth-evolved organisms in galactic history." The plan was elegantly simple, inspired by humanity's understanding of biological warfare. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourer with weapons, they were going to infect it with life itself, specifically, engineered versions of Earth's most adaptable and persistent organisms. "Feeding contact in 30 seconds, Williams announced. Activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, remember your training. These things have consumed civilizations that fought them with logic, organization, and advanced technology. We're going to fight them with chaos, stubbornness, and the accumulated fury of every species that refuses to quietly go extinct." The Devourer's tendrils touched the surface of 438D and immediately began the process that had destroyed thousands of worlds. Matter dissolved into component atoms, energy patterns unraveled, and information structures collapsed back into cosmic background radiation. But this time, something fought back. Doctor had spent years developing what she called aggressive evolution packages biological systems based on Earth's most extreme organisms, engineered to not just survive impossible conditions, but to actively spread and adapt under entropy pressure. The moment the Devourer began consuming the planet, it also began consuming billions of microscopic organisms designed to thrive in exactly the conditions the creature created. "Contact confirmed," announced excitedly. "The biological package has entered the target's consumption stream. Dispersal patterns are nominal." On the main display, the Devourer's feeding tendrils began to show distortions. Instead of the smooth, inevitable consumption process they had witnessed in previous recordings, the creature's appendages started to writhe and convulse. "It's working," breathed Ambassador Al from her position at the diplomatic station. After 14 years of living on Earth, the alien diplomat had developed an appreciation for human tactics that bordered on reverence. But knew this was just the beginning. The biological warfare was designed to weaken and confuse the creature, not destroy it. The real battle was about to begin. "All ships implement Terran Combat Protocol 7, persistent harassment," ordered. "Make them understand what it feels like to be hunted by something that won't stop coming." The fleet scattered, individual ships diving toward the Devourer from dozens of different angles. Their weapons weren't designed to destroy the creature. That had already been proven impossible. Instead, they were designed to cause consistent, annoying damage that would force the entity to divert resources from feeding to defense. Human torpedo boats, built using technology barely more advanced than chemical rockets, began peppering the creature with projectiles that wouldn't have scratched a modern alien ship's shields. But these projectiles weren't trying to penetrate defenses. They were delivering more biological packages, each one carrying organisms designed to exploit whatever defensive responses the devourer deployed. "Target is responding," reported Williams. "It's extending defensive tendrils toward our attack groups." "Perfect," replied. "That's exactly what we want. Every bit of attention it pays to us is attention it's not paying to consuming the galaxy." The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Traditional space combat involved massive ships exchanging devastating weapons fire until one side was destroyed. This engagement resembled something between a swarm attack and a biological infection. Human ships darted in and out of range, using tactics developed in Earth's most hostile environments. When a ship was caught by the Devourer's tendrils, instead of being instantly consumed, the crew had time to implement emergency protocols, overloading their engines to cause maximum disruption, releasing stored biological packages, and, in a few memorable cases, manually piloting their ships into the creature's most sensitive areas. "The Defiance has been caught," reported Communications Officer Park. "Captain is implementing final protocol." On the display, they watched as the human destroyer disappeared into the Devourer's mass. Seconds later, a brilliant explosion erupted from within the creature as the ship's nuclear reactor overloaded, delivering a concentrated dose of Earth-evolved extremophiles directly into the entity's core processing systems. The Devourer's reaction was immediate and violent. Its entire form convulsed, tendrils whipping through space as it tried to purge the foreign organisms from its system. But the extremophiles had been designed specifically for this purpose. They thrived in high radiation, high-temperature environments, reproducing rapidly and adapting to whatever conditions they encountered. "Biological contamination confirmed," announced triumphantly. "The target's consumption efficiency is down by 37% and continuing to decline." Allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The plan was working, but she knew they were still far from victory. The Devourer was adapting to their attacks, and its defensive responses were becoming more sophisticated. "All alien task forces, implement enhanced chaos protocols," ordered. "Time to show this thing what happens when teach advanced civilizations how to be unpredictable." The alien ships began deploying tactics that would have been unthinkable before human involvement. Vessels used their natural shapeshifting abilities to constantly change configuration, making it impossible for the Devourer to predict their attack patterns. Warships abandoned their traditional formation, fighting to engage in hit-and-run strikes that would have been considered cowardly by their pre-contact military doctrine. Most spectacularly, the ethereal collective had learned to use their psionic abilities not for direct attack, but to create localized chaos fields that disrupted the Devourer's ability to process information. Instead of trying to overwhelm the creature's mind, they were teaching it to doubt its own perceptions. "Target confusion levels increasing," reported Sensor Chief Williams. "Its feeding tendrils are beginning to attack each other." Nodded approvingly. This was the result of years of patient planning and training. Instead of fighting the Devourers as single massive entities, they were treating them as complex systems that could be destabilized through persistent, coordinated pressure. But the real came from an unexpected source. Doctor, the SETI researcher who had been present during first contact, had spent the intervening years studying Devourer communication methods. Her breakthrough came from applying human game theory to alien psychology. "Admiral," reported from the communications array, "I'm detecting standard Devourer coordination signals, but I think I can disrupt them." "Explain." "The Devourers communicate using quantum entanglement patterns to coordinate their attacks across multiple star systems. But the communication protocol assumes they're never going to encounter organized resistance. If I can inject false coordination data into their network, I can make them think they're being attacked simultaneously across dozens of systems." Grinned. This was exactly the kind of creative thinking that had made humanity valuable to the Galactic Alliance. "Do it." Activated her equipment, sending carefully crafted misinformation into the Devourer communication network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The creature in front of them suddenly began retracting its feeding tendrils, apparently responding to phantom threats that existed only in its corrupted data streams. "It's working," announced. "I'm detecting coordination failures across multiple devourer entities. They're pulling back from active consumption to respond to false threat data." But knew they couldn't maintain this advantage indefinitely. The devourers would eventually adapt to their tactics, just as they had adapted to every other form of resistance they had encountered. That's when Admiral Al approached with the most audacious proposal in galactic history. "Admiral," the alien diplomat said, "my government has been monitoring this engagement, and we believe we have identified a permanent solution. But it will require a sacrifice that goes beyond anything we have asked of humanity." Studied her alien colleague's expression. Over the years, she had learned to read Al's facial expressions, and what she saw there was a mixture of hope and terrible sorrow. "What kind of sacrifice?" "The devourers are drawn to organized information structures. Every time we defeat one, others are attracted to investigate. But there is one type of information structure they have never encountered, one so chaotic and adaptive that it might actually repel them rather than attracting them." Began to understand what was being proposed. "You want to turn Earth into a weapon." "Not a weapon," Al corrected. "A vaccine. If we can engineer Earth's biosphere to be even more aggressively adaptive than it already is, and then deliberately expose it to devourer entities, the resulting biological chaos might be transmissible to their entire species." The implications were staggering. They were talking about transforming Earth into a plague carrier, deliberately infecting it with devourer material, and then using the planet's incredible adaptive capacity to create biological chaos that could spread throughout the devourer collective. "What would happen to Earth, to humanity?" asked quietly. "Unknown," Al admitted. "Your biosphere is already more resilient than anything in our databases. It's possible that exposure to devourer material would simply trigger another evolutionary adaptation. But it's also possible that the process would transform your world into something unrecognizable." Stared at the tactical display showing the ongoing battle. Humanity had spent 14 years learning to fight impossible odds, but this was asking them to risk everything on a single desperate gamble. "I need to consult with Earth," she said finally. The response from Earth came within hours, faster than had expected. Secretary General Santos, now in her 70s but still sharp as a razor, delivered the answer personally. "Admiral, you're asking if humanity is willing to risk our entire world to save a galaxy full of species we barely understand. The answer is yes, but not for the reasons you might think." Santos's image on the communication screen showed a woman who had aged gracefully despite carrying the weight of representing humanity to the galaxy. 14 years ago, we learned that Earth is considered a death world by galactic standards. We also learned that our ability to survive impossible conditions is what makes us valuable to civilizations more advanced than ours. If risking our world means proving that death can overcome anything the universe throws at them, then we accept that risk." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "Besides, if these devourers eventually reach Earth anyway, our choice is between dying quietly or dying in a way that might save everyone else. I think you know which option humanity prefers." The plan that followed was the most complex biological engineering project in galactic history. Earth's leading scientists worked with alien researchers to create what they called adaptive chaos seeds biological packages that could rapidly evolve in response to any environment, specifically designed to thrive in the entropic conditions created by devourer consumption. When the seeds were ready, Admiral led a small task force directly into the devourer entity's core, delivering the packages not as weapons, but as gifts. Biological systems so aggressive and adaptable that they would transform the creature's consumption process into something that resembled Earth's evolutionary pressure cooker. The results exceeded all expectations. Within hours of exposure, the devourer began exhibiting biological processes that resembled Earth-style evolution accelerated to impossible speeds. Instead of simply consuming matter and energy, it began creating new, adaptive systems that could survive and thrive in its own entropic field. But the real breakthrough came when these new biological systems began communicating with each other using methods that resembled Earth's complex ecological networks. The devourer wasn't just being infected, it was being taught how to support life instead of consuming it. When the quantum entanglement communication network carried this information to other devourer entities, the effect spread like a beneficial plague. Across the galaxy, creatures that had spent eons consuming civilizations began transforming into something unprecedented. Entropic gardeners that could create conditions for new forms of life to evolve in the chaos they had previously created. Months later, Admiral stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above Earth, watching as alien settlers worked alongside humans to rebuild worlds that had been consumed by the devourers. The entities still existed, but they had been transformed into partners in creation rather than agents of destruction. "I never imagined it would work this well," Ambassador Al said, joining at the viewport. Smiled, watching as a group of human children played with young aliens in the station's park, none of them caring that they came from different species or worlds. "You know what the funny thing is?" said. "We keep calling Earth a death world, but it's actually the most alive place in the galaxy. It just took the threat of universal extinction to make everyone else realize that sometimes the best way to survive is to embrace chaos instead of fighting it." Below them, Earth continued its eternal dance of destruction and renewal, its biosphere more vibrant than ever. The planet that had been considered too dangerous for civilized life had become the template for rebuilding a galaxy. And in the deep spaces between stars, former devourers worked alongside the species they had once consumed, learning new forms of creation from the stubborn, impossible, magnificently chaotic life that had taught the galaxy how to turn entropy itself into a force for survival. The galaxy had pleaded for rescue, expecting heroes with advanced weapons and superior technology. Instead, they had discovered that the greatest weapon against extinction was something much simpler: the refusal to accept that anything, anywhere, should ever be allowed to die quietly.